These are the most disturbing crimes that happen in the online art community, with each case becoming progressively worse. And thank you for War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Puppy-chan was an online artist who was incredibly popular throughout the 2010s. He has gone by many names and pronouns, but is mostly recently going by Salem, which is what we'll call him. Salem starts his online art career in 2016 at the age of He becomes known for his drawings of anthropomorphic characters, aka animals with human traits, and because of this, he gains a following in the furry community. At first, his art has a unique and distinct style, which is what makes him stand out, but as the years go on, Salem's art style would slowly change. His characters would become more suggestive, with exaggerated curves, and by 2020, his art style would look completely different than it once was. Still, his following steadily grows, but despite this, he still shows insecurities, often asking his audience for reassurance, but it goes way deeper than just wanting validation. Salem describes his own childhood as, "I've went through a lot of childhood trauma, such as my sister hitting me and verbally being mean to me, experiencing racism, and being bullied in my school for my autistic behavior." In June of 2020, NSFW tweets from Salem's private account are leaked. On this account, he posted graphic art with explicit captions and other inappropriate thoughts. Now, at the time, Salem was seemingly allowing anyone into his account, which means that there were also adults seeing all of these inappropriate tweets from a small human, which a lot of people found both dangerous and problematic. Now, he had previously addressed this problem, but as it circulated again, he became incredibly upset and said, "Being talked about or called out is now a huge trigger for me from all the trauma I've experienced. Please don't screenshot me or try to do this, and just talk to me, please." Now, after all of this negative attention he received for this, he would make an attempt to leave this earth, but luckily this attempt would fail. But it's all too soon when something similar happens. Salem turns 18 in November, and his own friend, Bada, calls him out for another NSFW private account, except this time it's worse. Bada explains that Salem, once again, wasn't careful about who he let into his account, which included small humans this time. By allowing them into this account, he exposed them to inappropriate art and content. Now, he would claim that this was unintentional, later tweeting, "I had an NSFW account which started as a vent, so there were small humans on there. I changed it to a NSFW. I irresponsibly promoted it on my main account, and small humans followed because my following is full of them. I was told this and I got really angry. I started to take my anger out on them by saying I hate small humans sometimes. I exposed them to content that I need to be held accountable for." Now, after this call out, Salem would attempt to leave this earth again, blaming Bada for his actions, which resulted in people actually harassing Bada. Now, Salem again is unsuccessful, and the next day comes back to explain what exactly happened. He apologizes to Bada and his audience, saying, "A few hours ago I threatened and tried to leave this earth. I should have called for help instead of dumping that on my audience. It was triggering to everyone. Then the harassment with Bada, blaming her for my leaving this earth, is beyond disgusting and just cruel. She didn't do anything to me, just held me accountable." He concludes this by saying, "I will delete that account and will never post my NSFW content on any social media platform again." Now, in the wake of this, on the same day, another upsetting accusation would emerge. A user posted that while they were still a small human, Salem's partner had tried to pressure them into a polyamorous relationship, and while not directly Salem's fault, it doesn't look great after the controversy. Now, this would result into Salem taking a brief break after this to work on his mental health, but he would return shortly in January of 2021, claiming to be better and on medication. But despite what he says, his post would tell a different story. He would start getting into arguments and constantly threaten to extinguish himself when called out. And while this may be unhealthy behavior, it's nothing compared to some of the other claims he makes throughout the year. Like, for example, claiming that it's his destiny to be a martyr. The most notable instance of his unhealthy behavior is when Salem creates a gender-swapped goth version of Garfield called Gothfield, a concept that would become massively popular, and other artists of course would make their own version. Now, over time, a lot of the artists would actually stop crediting Salem as the creator, which would in turn really upset him, so he would send his fans to harass any artists who don't credit his idea. And when he got criticized for that, he again threatened to OD, but this time he had a new perspective. He believed that he will survive this attempt and says, "I will do this because I am God, his disciple." Now, he fails once more, and when he comes back, he suggests that he may have DID or multiple personalities, blaming some of his past behavior on what he calls the crazy one. Still, to this day, he identifies as having this disorder. In 2022, Salem then brands his account as 18+ and would start again posting NSFW stuff, and doesn't do much to discourage young people from interacting with this art, which people notice and again criticize. But all of these controversies seem like nothing compared to what happens a few months later. March 29. A 15-year-old girl named Green accuses Salem of doing inappropriate things with him. Green says that Salem blocked him without any explanation, and now that they are no longer friends, he wants to reveal what Salem did to him. And a tweet on Salem's private account would actually explain the situation. I followed this one artist who's a small human. They call me mom, talk about around me, and even found my NSFW account and started showing/saving my suggestive pics from there. They make me so uncomfortable, but they're like a mentally unstable young person. And we see a screenshot of their message from March 2nd, showing this kind of conversation. I want to draw suggestive art, but maybe a locked account to post that stuff and only let trusted followers see it? That's not enough, you see. I want to post it on my main, like how I did on my old account, but a bit less suggestive. Oh, then you can do it. I see other young artists do it. Just try not to show too much skin or overly suggestive poses. I don't want creepy adults preying on you. What are some examples? I should know about like how much skin is too much and what poses are too suggestive, like showing boobs or ass popping out clothes, or showing a pose where the boobs or ass is the main focus. Not only does Salem encourage Green to post suggestive art on their account, when he eventually decides he's uncomfortable with their relationship, Salem pushes Green away and then completely cuts him off. Now he tries to diffuse things by speaking to Green and working things out, but still receives criticism for encouraging that kind of thing in the first place. Salem would eventually admit that he was wrong by saying, "After that, I have not sent messages like this, only become more distant and annoyed. I wish I did the mature thing by talking to this artist about my boundaries and then slowly cutting off, but instead I blocked him." The other allegation is about Salem encouraging Green to call him mom. Green thought I encouraged him to call me mom, which I did not. I only hearted a reply he sent me which had the word in it. I am uncomfortable with that word, especially now with my true gender identity. Now despite that, he doesn't shed the label of a. And this isn't even the end of it. On April 22nd, a Twitter account called Kung Fu Revi is created. However, when they post their own art, it has an eerily similar style. It doesn't take long for people to figure out that this account is Salem attempting to disguise himself. People accuse him of cultural appropriation of the username and the way the user types, seemingly hoping to convince people he's Asian. At first he defends himself and says, "On my newer account I just like to talk how I do normally IRL. As for the Kung Fu layout, I like Kung Fu movies. That's literally it." But despite that, he abandons that account. Now Salem is still active on Tumblr and Blue Sky and has now rebranded under the username WolfTinger666 and shed the Puppy-chan persona. And as chaotic as Salem's saga is, it is not as unique as you think. The next person we're covering shows shockingly similar behavior to Salem.
If people came to you asking if we had please do not say we did. People on Kiwi farms are trying to say you because of loose proof that they had.
But before I talk about that, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a massive military game, available on PC, console, and mobile, that lets you step into the cockpit of over 2,500 real planes, tanks, and even warships from across 10 different countries, and over 100 years of history. Whether it's the chaos of a dogfight high above the clouds, or the slow tension of an ambush deep in the forest, the game actually captures the weight and realism of combat in a way that few others do. The physics, the damage, and even the sound, everything feels grounded and intense. And depending on how you play, you can switch between fast-paced arcade battles or full simulation mode for something far more realistic. You don't need any special equipment either. Everything runs smoothly with just a mouse, keyboard, or a controller. And as you play, you can research new vehicles, upgrade parts, and even fine-tune every loadout to fit your own playstyle. The scale is huge, and you can go from old World War II fighters to modern attack helicopters in the same session. War Thunder is completely free to play on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. And you can join over 95 million other players. And if you use the links in the description or the pinned comment to sign up, or if you haven't played in over 6 months, you'll get a bonus pack across PC and consoles. With a 50% experience and income boost, 2 advanced vehicles for rent, 100,000 Silver Lions, the Eagle of Valor vehicle decorator, and a full week of premium time. It's available for a limited time, so make sure to grab it while you can and support this channel at the same time. And now let's get back to the video. For nearly 2 years, the internet watched the rapid rise and collapse of a Twitter artist known as Francis. At an alarming rate, Francis went from meme creator to one of the most mocked people online. And it all began with just a few brushstrokes and Microsoft Paint. It's October 2023, and Francis makes a new Twitter account called Fallen Chungus. The next month, he starts posting a webcomic. It's simple, just 2 panels poking fun at how internet culture affects the way we react to things. One character states, "Yeah, so I went to visit my friend," and the other one interrupts with, "Bro visited his friends." It quickly takes off and becomes one of the most popular memes on Twitter. Francis' follower count rises fast as different versions of the meme spread, most of which also mock internet culture and toxic online behavior. But little did he know that these silly jokes were a grim predictor of his future. On January 22nd, 2024, Francis addresses screenshots that allegedly show him being a chaser, someone who objectifies trans people in an inappropriate way. In the screenshot, he frequently focuses on trans women's bodies, referencing watching adult materials specifically of them, and how he dislikes other women. He even references that he does this, but not wanting to be considered a chaser. He defends himself, saying, "This image surfaced last year, after a weird period where a lot of my close trans friends were going through so I tried to be an ally and failed miserably. This image was compiled by a group of transphobic trolls." Due to the backlash, he disappears on January 30th. And for weeks, people online would speculate that the hate may have driven him to leave this earth by his own hand. And everybody's suspicion would be confirmed true when he returned on February 18th. He was admitted to a hospital, which he describes as an enlightening experience, being the 4th time after a crisis over a year ago. I honestly feel great, although continuing posting is something that I don't want to do as of now. But despite that, Francis would go back to posting, with now tens of thousands of followers. However, this also means that more people than ever decide to mock him. But on May 26th, it would get much worse than just the usual mocking. A user named Ricky tweeted a joke about Francis, who then co-tweeted her, complaining about the joke, which would trigger his followers to harass her. Now on May 26th, Ricky's girlfriend reveals that because of the harassment, Ricky actually attempted to leave this earth too, and tweets from Ricky's private account would confirm that she did attempt, but luckily survived. Another user would post private messages with Francis where he says, "I put them on blast because what they said was stupid. You can't argue with me on that. What am I supposed to do, dog? You expect me to handle everything with this ever-perfect godly whim just because I have a following? I don't know why Ricky would even do that. It's unpredictable." And Francis would respond publicly, where he doubled down and says, "If one tweet is enough to send someone over the edge, they have issues that are beyond me. Nothing I'd be aware of at first glance whatsoever. To put the blame on me for this is fucking insane, and I hope you can eventually understand that." And he would even go as far as accuse Ricky of lying. The backlash he would receive because of this was extreme, and about an hour later he would tweet, "Alright, I give up. Anything I was trying to build, it's over. I don't care about the money, the partnership, or even the fans anymore. There's no meds left in the house. My parents hid them, but I'll find another way to do it. I always do." The next day, Francis would post a short video that implies that he will do something drastic, and then once more he disappears. And 2 weeks later, Francis would confirm that he tried to leave this earth again, but survived, and has been checked in a mental hospital, and that while there he was actually doxxed. He tweets, "For what it's worth, I'm not coming back, period. I want my story to serve as an example of both not to do and what to dreadfully expect when you find fame." But he replies to the original statement, changing his mind and saying, "I just want to put it out there that me returning isn't a 0% chance, although it'll be way later when I feel like I've matured enough to withstand the toxicity that comes with platform management." But Francis doesn't stay away for long. On June 22nd, he reveals to everyone that his home life is even more chaotic than his online life. He explains, "For anyone wondering, my mom has essentially been controlling my entire life since I got home." Further elaborating in another tweet, he says, "They took away everything and threatened me being kicked out if I went online." And on June 29th, he would post confirmation that his parents followed through and he's now homeless. He says that this is the worst situation he's ever dealt with, and again ends up in the hospital. And when he returns on July 19th again, he claims he will take an actual break this time. However, his breaks never really last long. And in August, Francis comes back to ask for help finding somewhere to stay, and eventually looking to get back into game development. Now he does again find himself in a minor controversy when he creates an NSFW account, which people criticize due to his fandom, including a large number of young people, which prompts him to delete it after 2 days. And for a couple of months, things are actually fairly calm. He announces in late October that he wants to sell the Fallen Chungus account. This sets off a chain of events. He frequently changes his mind and backs out of the sale, gets scammed by the buyer, and allegations of Francis scamming another user come out, all within a few days. And at the end of the day, the user who actually took over his account becomes known as Liquid Chungus and still has the account today. Francis would start posting on a new account, and with a smaller following, gets into less trouble, at least at first. In February, he is criticized for drawing NSFW art of questionably aged characters, such as Hello Kitty and other Sanrio characters. He would make a thread apologizing and saying that he had no clue about their ages. But this, along with his previous accusations, seem much darker in May, when Francis' biggest controversy occurs. On May 15th, 2025, users on Kiwi forums circulate rumors and allegations that in 2024, Francis and a girl named Isabella had relations. Their main evidence is 2 tweets from August 10th, 2024, one from each of them. At the time, they were both on the same program, at the same hospital. Francis was 18 and Isabella was freshly. People would begin to question Francis, including one of the game devs he works with.
It is discomforting, but if you can, disprove it.
I don't care.
He denies it completely when asked and claims that this is all just to dunk on him and it shouldn't be taken seriously.
There's obviously so much distrust going on. I'm just gonna take my leave. I don't care. You can own the game. I don't give a shit. I don't care if this is deflecting. It's not. I am so unbelievably tired of having to deal with Kiwi farms, having to deal with everything. I'm going cold turkey.
When directly asked about the tweets, he says,
"This is not proof of any interaction between us. It doesn't prove that we had relations or that I performed anything on her. I don't even know why she tweeted that so soon after my tweet, which was a random joke as per the usual humor of the fallen Chang's account at the time."
Now, due to their age difference, people take this pretty seriously, some even claiming it would have been illegal at the time. But while denying it, Francis still makes it clear that due to age of consent laws where it occurred, it wouldn't have technically been illegal. But this doesn't make it much better for him, as people point out that he met Isabella when she was only and he was. In a Discord screenshot from March 2024, Francis even references their age gap and worries about it. He says,
"Let me lay it out for you. I'm turning 18 in May. She's turning in August. Is that too wide? I mean, she's gone through similar given we met in an outpatient program."
Now this makes it look even worse, because he seemed to wait right after she turned, which would have been the age where she was able to legally consent. Struck with this evidence, Francis finally stops denying it. He admits,
"I'm tired and rather would own up to it than spend my entire life lying. It wasn't technically illegal by any means, given the age of consent in Pennsylvania. But yes, we did. She came on to me, and it didn't really last long, as I was almost instantly regretting it mid-act."
He goes on to say he regrets but places a lot of blame on Isabella.
"I did everything in my power to not assert a power dynamic, to make it an equal exchange, but that doesn't matter in the end, as I failed the moment I let her do her thing."
But this is only the beginning. Isabella herself is asked for her side of things, and the story she tells is almost entirely different. Isabella starts by saying that they never actually had relations the way he described them. They had 2 encounters, as she calls them, and she shows screenshots of Francis messaging her about everything. At first he begs her to lie, and later, after he posted his original confession, he messaged her again saying,
"I had literally no other way to defend myself, so I just said we had. Now I have to delete everything. No one respects me anymore."
And when asked why she thinks Francis would lie about all of this, Isabella says,
"He wants to look like the victim. He wants people to think, oh, look at this poor kid I'm bullying. He got a. I should stop now. He doesn't realize that it will never happen."
Despite this evidence, Francis accuses her of lying, which will lead to Isabella eventually publicly addressing everything, basically just confirming what she said earlier. While it was consensual on both of their parts, it didn't go very far, and she would end it by saying that he is a victim of his own mind and refuses to get proper help. She then shows a series of texts where she begged him to go offline, but as everyone expects, he returns on May 17th with a long thread addressing the situation and finally admitting the whole truth. He starts with an apology to Isabella, saying,
"Isabella, I never got a chance to really formally say sorry. I never meant to take advantage of you in any way. I never considered us as unequal. I've been stunned for as long as I've been alive because of the environments I've lived in. It doesn't matter if it isn't technically illegal, it was incredibly wrong of me to even try and be your equal."
He then further apologizes to his friends and fellow game devs he lied to. His final thoughts in the thread are,
"I'm not seeking a lick of sympathy from this thread. Not my goal at all. My plan going forward is to simply leave and live in the real world for once. I plan to go to college by the end of this year, and I start work soon."
However, as always, Francis just couldn't stay away, and by July he would post that he was recently back in the psych ward and is actively and frequently posting again. Now what Francis and Isabella did wasn't technically illegal, but it's the tip of the iceberg that shows what being chronically online can do to a person.
I wasn't a good boyfriend, and it ended up being pretty damaging. I was a massive, inconsiderate, emotionally unavailable.
Hyojin Choi, known online as Squizzy, was a popular online artist, animator, YouTuber, and Twitch streamer who rose to prominence in 2017. By January 2018, Hyojin managed to garner 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and her following continued to grow over the years. However, in 2022, Hyojin's ex-boyfriend Ed, also known as Punk Duck, would post 2 tweets that would shatter Hyojin's reputation forever. In 2019, multiple scandals involving Hyojin broke, following her involvement in the accusations against YouTuber Michael Kucharski, better known online as Slazo. It all began when Hyojin's close friend, Che, accused Michael of SA and abuse. Che posted a twitlonger titled,
"Why I haven't been posting and what's been going on."
There are too many details to go into everything, but in summary, Michael would eventually post a video titled My Side, debunking most of the claims and taking accountability for some of the behavior he admitted he regretted. For example, Che made the claim claim in her tweet longer that
Michael was incredibly demanding of sexual favors and would often guilt or force me into situations to which I was not comfortable. If I was to try and deny or argue against him, he would become aggressive.
Eventually it came out that most of her claims were untrue though. In his video, Michael provided screenshots that show he did not behave in an aggressive way when Che expressed discomfort.
Because when you were there, I specifically said, "Hey, I'm really not in the mood for that stuff for me." You still did it. It made me feel like a bit of an object. I know you didn't mean to. I don't know. I don't want to fight. I'm sorry. I need to take no for an answer. I was in the wrong and I apologize. I hope you forgive me.
Along with other proof that some of her specific recounting of events was blatantly untrue.
This makes me sound like a monster, and if it did happen, I would be a monster. But this isn't how it happened. What did happen was this was a very awkward but mutual situation, where she describes I moved her hands to touch me. She did that of her own volition, and she even mentions this in Discord messages from after we met up in person. So, yeah, I'm not sure why she would lie about that.
Throughout the 30-minute video, he directly exposes most of her claims as lies or exaggerations. Unfortunately, other creators, including Hyojin, had already led a brutal defamation campaign against him without fact-checking any of it. Many of those responsible eventually apologized, but Hyojin opted to double down, stating on Twitter that she
didn't have a hand in writing the tweet longer at all
and acted only as
complete moral support.
This was prompted after DMs between Hyojin and other creators were leaked.
With events coming up, I want to make sure no one else associates with her. Shay, do you have that version of the post you said you were gonna send?
In her denial tweets, Hyojin claimed the screenshot was taken out of context, but this didn't sway the internet's opinion that she needed to apologize nonetheless. Now, while this was going on, people also began looking into Hyojin's past and were shocked and horrified with what they found. In a clip from 2017, Hyojin is seen on stream using the N-word.
Dude, what are you, black ass?
God, no!
Okay, get her out of here. Oh my god!
Hyojin! Get her.
Along with this, a leaked DM showed Hyojin using the slur multiple times while hurling disturbing insults. Now she claimed,
"This screenshot is fake and isn't me, but I've made edgy / racist / inappropriate jokes in the past."
Now it's not clear if the screenshot was actually faked or not, but those who knew Hyojin have stated that this was frequent behavior for her. Many people online found this deeply hypocritical, considering Hyojin complained about users behaving in racist ways towards her. Now disturbingly, also in 2017, Hyojin ran an NSFW account where she would often draw explicit and suggestive art of IRL content creators, one of whom was at the time. She then made a post defending herself.
Everyone that was drawn had requested it themselves in response to a public tweet and were all depicted as 18+.
But this was contradicted by another creator who tweeted,
"Didn't she draw me? I never wanted that at all."
After the intense backlash for these actions, Hyojin then posted a tweet threatening to leave this earth on her own accord. Now a lot of users insisted she should just apologize instead of going to these extreme lengths, but she didn't listen, and it was later confirmed she had been admitted to a mental hospital. Despite all of this, Hyojin would return to the internet, citing that she was doing better. She also thanked Ed for
being the biggest Chad and flying 24 hours just to visit me in a dingy, broken down hospital ward.
But her mental health struggles did not deflect from the fact she still had to apologize to Michael, even going as far as to mute the word Slazo from a Twitch chat. Eventually, Hyojin decided to apologize on Twitch. Unfortunately, the link to the clip is now broken and it doesn't seem like any archives exist. However, users on Reddit claimed the apology was dismissive and defensive, stating that while she should have looked at both sides of things, she didn't because the accuser was her IRL friend. Now Che disappeared from the internet shortly after this, but Hyojin somehow maintained and expanded her large following after this, hitting 1 million subscribers in June of 2022. This all changes though on July 19th of the same year, when Ed, the ex-boyfriend, posted a tweet containing 4 images, packed full of text that outlines the horrifying experience of his 2.5-year relationship with Hyojin. Ed and Hyojin would begin their relationship in 2019, and over the course of nearly 3 years, Hyojin would consistently emotionally abuse him. She would tear him down for everything, break up with him multiple times, and threaten to hurt herself, and much more. For the first 6 months, Hyojin would apologize when she would have these outbursts and promise Ed that it wouldn't happen again, and Ed would actually believe her, not knowing that this was only the beginning. 6 months into their relationship, the truly heinous behavior begins when Hyojin flies to visit Ed in early 2020. She unfortunately arrives only days before the COVID-19 restrictions are put in place, and when this forces her to return to Australia, she screams and insults him as he tries to help her, saying he is
useless.
She intentionally misconstructs his intentions, telling him,
"You're just doing this to make me feel stupid. Just fucking leave that."
which would prompt him to apologize to her. Eventually, after Ed's mom begins to notice how often the two are fighting, she pays for Hyojin's flight back, despite Hyojin having already raised enough money for a ticket on stream. Ed outlines multiple other instances similar to this. Over the next 9 months, he would continue to take the blame for everything, not yet realizing he was in an abusive relationship. However, when Ed visits Hyojin for New Year's, things spiral out of control, and their relationship grows darker than ever before. On New Year's, Hyojin makes a scene in the public park when they try to assemble a tent to watch the fireworks. She calls Ed useless again, and as upsetting as this is, it is about to get much worse. On January 3rd, 2021, while struggling to set up a game, Hyojin would again bombard him with verbal abuse, bringing him to the verge of tears. She would then hop on a Discord call with friends like nothing happened. Ed, in shock, would ask her,
"Are you actually doing this?"
which would enrage Hyojin, but Ed would actually stand his ground and tell her what she did was up. But this is when she would take the abusive behavior to the next level. Hyojin would hit Ed so hard his head bounced off the wall. In complete shock, Ed would ask,
"What the f did you just do?"
And he would recall that
This was the first moment I realized I was in an abusive relationship. For a year it was emotional, and now it was physical.
Hyojin would then storm off in tears, while Ed called a nearby friend for help and frantically packs. His friend would then call an ambulance to Hyojin's home. Now Hyojin walks in on Ed packing, and when she realizes what he's doing, she brandishes a knife at him before turning it on herself. Ed would receive multiple injuries when wrestling it away from her. And to make matters worse, Hyojin's mom would walk in and begin to scream and insult Hyojin herself. The ambulance arrives, and along with it, the police. Ed tells him everything, worried that if he doesn't, he will be mistakenly charged with a felony. But fortunately, Hyojin is taken away in cuffs, while Ed Ubers to his friend's house. And this is when Hyojin would begin to text him.
"You think I wanted this? You told the police first thing that I hit you. You wanted me to be detained. I need to say this. What you did cannot happen ever again. We'll talk about this when I'm there, okay? If this court case goes well, that's fine. If it doesn't, I'll have nothing to live for. So that court case better do well. I know you're saying sorry, but it still happened. I know I can't undo that, and it's still going to affect me long term. This didn't help my mental health. It made it worse, and it's your fault. I am not your punching bag. Don't act like you're an abuse victim. I've been through the worst. I literally am, and I'm sorry you have, but it doesn't give you an excuse or the right to treat me like you did. You backed me into a corner, and I was terrified. You scared the shit out of me. I'm a whole foot shorter than you. Do something about it. No, I will never lay a hand on you, ever."
She once again manipulated him into apologizing, and she would convince him to stay with her and write a statement to the police so she wouldn't get in trouble. For another year, Ed would endure Hyojin's behavior, saying,
"Forgiving them for this was the worst mistake of my life. Letting that go basically opened the floodgates for every piece of textbook abuse you can imagine."
Towards the end of 2021, Hyojin would reveal that she had been lying about taking her medication and attending therapy, and a few weeks later, Ed would finally break up with her. Now after this, Hyojin would cut off communication completely, and she would begin dating somebody else. But a couple of months later, she would join a Discord server Ed is in, and when Ed politely expressed his discomfort at this, Hyojin threatened him and removed him on every platform. Now after Ed's post, Hyojin would begin to lose a lot of followers rapidly, and by July, she would drop below 1 million subscribers. On August 2nd, she would then publicly tweet an apology to Ed, admitting everything he said was true, saying,
"I look at the person I was a couple of years ago. Even if I have changed, those were my actions, and I understand that this was deserved."
And she claims that she's currently seeking therapy. This is the last thing Hyojin posts, ending her statement with, "I'm not gonna come back till I'm better. I just hope I can show that I can change clearly for people to see in the future." As of 2025, she still hasn't resurfaced online. The next few cases are even worse, since there are people not of age involved. In 2020, the Twitter art community is hit with back-to-back scandals. In less than 1 month, 3 prominent artists are exposed for actions that range from suspicious to downright criminal. The first to be outed is Honoel A. Ibardolaza, a popular artist in the Splatoon fandom, who went by Hi or Nami online. On August 18th, a 15-year-old boy named Charles, aka Chibins, posts a twitlonger titled,
"My experience with Get Good Nami."
Since he uses multiple names, we'll be referring to him as Nami throughout, since this is how Charles refers to him in the post. It all begins in 2015, when Nintendo releases the game Splatoon. Nami begins posting his comic series Get Good Nami on Nintendo's old social media platform, Miiverse. And Charles, who frequently played the game, recalls,
"Nami was a big inspiration for me. I stumbled upon the Splatoon comics around 2015, and I was a huge fan of them. By some chance, I found them on Miiverse. There was an existing friend group that I was slowly absorbed into. This group of commenters was nicknamed the Nami Crew, and I was glad to be a part of it."
Now when Nintendo announced that they were shutting down the Miiverse, Nami decided to create a private Discord server for the group, and on December 31st, 2016, Charles would join. Now he's incredibly active in the server and says,
I was at the time, but I was still having a good time. I talked there nearly every day, and I talked to Nami in DMs a lot, like every morning and night. It didn't take long for them to ask questions about me. Keep in mind, Nami is an adult.
Now Nami's exact age isn't known, however it's clear that he's at least in his 30s, because of his long history publishing books and comics, going as far back as the 90s. One user shows Discord messages where Nami confirms that.
So you're saying you've been doing this for 25 years? I suppose I am. Man, you've been at this longer than I've been alive. Yep.
A grown man becoming so close with a small human is already strange, but things are about to go from strange to downright sinister. The first time Nami makes Charles feel uncomfortable occurs when he unexpectedly asks Charles to send a picture of his face. Charles recalls,
I really didn't want to do it, but I caved in. Nami explicitly said that I looked cute.
Now once Nami is able to convince Charles to send that first picture, it opens the floodgates for increasingly disturbing behavior. He also mentions a group between Nami, himself, and his old friend named Eli, where Nami continues to test boundaries. Charles describes the group chat as,
Nami liked to ask about my feet and talked about and make stuff about me and my friend Eli wearing pajamas.
Over the next couple of years, Nami pressures him to send more and more pictures, continuing to make inappropriate comments and threatening to leave the server if Charles refuses. Charles says,
They'd pretty much conditioned me to take pictures for them whenever they wanted.
At one point, after Charles mentions he's moving houses, Nami not only asks for pictures of Charles' new room, but also asks for his old address. Now Charles would actually say no for the first time, but Nami would simply ask a couple of days later, and when Charles refuses again, Nami makes vague comments in the server that Charles knows are about him. In June 2018, when Charles asks his brother for help to take pictures for Nami, his brother expresses,
Your Nami friend on Discord is a creep, and I don't want you to send any pics of yourself to them ever again.
Shortly after this, on July 1st, Nami then abruptly leaves the server, unfriending and unfollowing almost everyone, and when Charles messages Nami out of concern, he replies slowly and vaguely, but implies he left because Charles wouldn't send the pics he asked for. He simply guilt trips him by saying things like,
I guess I don't matter,
and
I guess I'm just a cartoon character.
For the next 2 months, every conversation between Nami and Charles goes the same way, and Nami frequently leaves and rejoins the server without a word. In September, however, Nami follows through on his threat and leaves the server for good. Understandably, the members have questions, but the mods avoid answering until eventually they reveal
it was due to heartbreak
caused by someone they didn't specify. Charles and Nami finally stop speaking, and Nami starts to brand his account as 18+ and openly creates art all of the sudden. Now on June 29, 2020, Nami shocks everyone by rejoining the server, but as quickly as he appears, he leaves again. Charles only remembers,
I went back to DM Eli if he knew what was going on, and he had no idea. I told him what Nami had done to me in the past and went to get screenshots. When I found out, Nami deleted every single DM they'd ever sent me.
After their confession, Eli reveals that there's more to the story. Nami had asked Eli to take pictures of himself as usual, but this was different. Nami wanted pictures of Eli in his pajamas, and worse, in his underwear. Just like with Charles, Nami had conditioned Eli to send pictures whenever he asked to, and once he received those pictures, Nami used them for artistic inspiration. He posted the less suggestive drawings publicly, but in private, he sent Eli ones with just underwear. Eli was... and Nami knew that. He just didn't care. Now Charles' Twitter post spreads like wildfire, and Nami would have no choice to respond. So on August 19th, one day after Charles' post, Nami tweets a long statement, which she starts off by saying,
I'm writing this in response to the misleading allegations made against me.
He tries to justify himself with the following excuse.
I often feel alienated. As an artist, I'm a visual person, and I like to ask for pictures from everyone I know, so I can get a sense of what they like, how they live, etc.
But he admits he should have not asked anyone for details about their lives that they were uncomfortable sharing, and that he regrets not acting his age. He seems to feel guilty and apologizes for causing any emotional pain or discomfort. But then he shifts and writes,
The other accusations against me is simply something I cannot accept. I would never ever knowingly commit the kind of unethical behavior that I'm being accused of. The very idea sickens and saddens me. I am not that guy.
In his final words, he expresses gratitude and requests one last thing from his audience.
I hope that you can at least give me the benefit of the doubt. Thank you.
But most people don't think he deserved that benefit. They don't see the statement as remorse. They see it as deflection. And so just like that, his reputation was forever ruined. The art community is left shocked after this. But little do they know that in less than 2 weeks, more shocking accusations would come out.
I of course agree with you on that. The Twitter experience is kind of a varied one. With every good thing that comes from it, there is also the bad things.
John Bob was a popular artist, game developer, and animator. He initially gained popularity on Twitter from his simple but well-made animations, an interactive adventure game, John Bob's Quest. It's August 28th, 2020, and he posts a series of tweets. At the time, he has nearly 30,000 followers, so the post quickly gains traction. And because of this, it's not long before it leaves his bubble of loyal fans. This case has a unique aspect to it. It doesn't start with a victim speaking out. It's John Bob himself who tells the world about the crimes he committed. The first tweet reads,
"I'm going to out myself for things I've done in the past, and I'm not proud of. Someone I was friends with a couple of years ago shared DMs between us. Stuff I've long since forgotten. These were DMs of an explicit nature, between me and her. She was and I was 18.
The girl in these screenshots has chosen to keep her identity anonymous, so we'll simply refer to her as Sarah. The conversation John Bob posts begins with Sarah sending him explicit art drawn by her friend, and this spawns the following interaction.
Aren't you a dude? Ah, yes. Well, it's hot, I'll give you that. How old are you again? And a half. What would you say if I actually exploded to this? Haha.
John continues to thread and attempts to explain his actions by saying,
"The next part is just for context, not justification for what I did. To be clear, she had initiated the explicit nature of the conversation. I wasn't picking her out to prey upon. She had started it. But I was 18, a legal adult. I should have known that was not okay. I was very ignorant of how I should have acted. I guess in my mind, a 3-year gap didn't seem bad to me. I didn't know then that it was not okay for a to interact with NSFW content at all. After all, I had looked at adult stuff when I was, but that doesn't make what I did okay."
He goes on to apologize for his actions and hopes that people can forgive him. In the final tweet in the thread, he claims he's not posting this because someone is threatening to come forward, and it is solely due to how ashamed he is. Now here's the twist. A few hours after John's last tweet, Sarah makes a Twitter account to talk about the situation and tell her side of things. She clarifies,
"To be clear, I never initiated anything. I never intended to flirt with him. I never wanted him to say the things he did. You can believe whatever or whoever you want."
And she would also share the screenshots of before and after the out of context ones John posted, where we see John offering to draw NSFW art for her original character that is based on Sarah herself. When Sarah reveals a friend of hers had already drawn art like that, he asks to see it. In the screenshot that takes place after John conveniently cropped his post, he says,
"I'll draw explicit stuff of us if you roleplay with me sometimes."
Now she thinks he's joking at first, but when she realizes he's serious, she grows uncomfortable and awkward. But she worries that if she says something wrong, it'll ruin their friendship, so she simply doesn't. In another message from the next day, John would continue to reference NSFW art and doing graphic things to himself with the art. And the final image Sarah shares shows John sending her NSFW art months later. And in one of her tweets, Sarah references that she's spoken to others who John treated similarly. And around the same time, we get confirmation that this is true. Another artist posts their own experience with John, tweeting,
"He treated me really weirdly when I was and drew of my deer and showed me NSFW while I was. I always knew it was weird, but I was scared I was overreacting. I just want people to know that the person in the screenshot isn't the only person he's been like this towards. There are others too."
And another few hours after this, a thread is posted showing more ways John lied about the situation. Leaked Discord messages show him sharing that Sarah messaged him and told him beforehand she was planning to go public with the screenshots, not just sharing them with him privately as he implied in his first tweet. Shortly after all of this new information comes to light, John quietly deactivates his Twitter, although he returns in the morning to address the new developments.
"I get why deactivating was a coward move. I'm reactivating to give a final statement, and then I'm going away for a long time. You have every right to be disgusted by me. I don't deny that one bit. I'm going to try my best to make things better, not just for me, but for those I've hurt."
He acknowledges that he
sugar-coated, victim-blamed, and tried to tidy it up to soften the blow.
He retweets some of Sarah's posts and the threads exposing his lies, and then deactivates later the same day. But that doesn't mean that the story is over. His ex-girlfriend Bridgie would also come forward the same day to reveal herself as one of John's earliest, potentially first victims.
"For reference, I was his first girlfriend. He was and I was, but his behavior turned quickly. I knew the victim as one of my friends at one point, but it turns out there are more victims. I am very sorry. I hid this cause man, I've been scared for the last 4 years. He really destroyed how I see relationships, and I've not managed to feel okay since."
She also reveals that John has an addiction to illicit materials, and in a Discord conversation between the two, John doesn't deny it when she mentions it, which adds up with his obsession regarding NSFW art. Bridgie says that in retrospect she considers the age gap disturbing, but even if others don't,
what he did would still be considered a form of emotional,
and calls him
a manipulative, egotistical jerk.
After this, Bridgie's friend would also post confirmation of John's abusive behavior in the past, describing him as toxic and controlling. The next day, September 2nd, another user would make a Twitter account dedicated to their experience with John. They've also chosen to remain anonymous, so we'll call her Avery. In her first tweet, Avery says that she was friends with John from 2017 to 2019, and she begins to post screenshots of her private conversations with John. In the earliest message she posts, John asked her to send. While the tone is lighthearted, based on other examples, it seems like he's testing the waters for the future, and it doesn't help that he only asked for her age after he sent those messages.
How old are you, by the way? I am that of tiny of. Oh, nice. Haha. Lol. Well, I was when I started my channel.
This conversation takes place in late 2018, when John is already 18, but it doesn't stop him. In the next screenshot from a month later, John makes more lewd jokes and sends a meme about being. In another conversation from early 2019, he comments that if Avery wasn't gay, he would kiss them. At one point, he also asked her what they considered too big of an age gap. And the last two screenshots take place after John's 19th birthday. In one, he yet again makes a lewd joke, and in the last one, he calls Avery baby girl and she calls him adult boy. That night, John would return for one final post.
I acknowledge that I hurt a lot of people through my of young people. I wish nothing but peace and happiness for the people I've hurt. This isn't an attempt of self-pity or trying to justify what I did. This is a final message to the people I've hurt. Victims, I'm sorry for my unforgivable actions. To all the people I let down on the side, you are right to feel betrayed. Please don't accept or decline my apology, unless you were personally affected by my actions. As of this tweet, my account is now defunct, but I will delete it in the future.
And John would actually delete his account shortly after and disappear. Since being outed, some of John's former friends have come forward to talk about even more creepy and off-putting experiences from him over the years, further proving how consistent his behavior was. In 2025, he still hasn't returned to social media. And for the next case, we need to rewind just a bit, because before John's scandal was done playing out, one of his friends would end up in a shockingly similar situation.
But one thing I will say in this situation, I do consider myself a victim.
Tarhead, who we'll just call Tar, was another fairly popular artist in the community. At the time, he had nearly 13,000 followers and was known for his distinct horror style and original character of the same name. Accompanied by a drawing of his character and John happily hanging out together, Tar tweets,
I personally don't think John Bob is a monster, but a pervert and touch-starved simp for sure, and that is what this judgment. You need to keep these kinds of feelings in check, because you might do something you regret and hurt people at the expense of your desires. Get help. I definitely experienced him making some of my friends uncomfortable with his weird advances, taking the slightest opportunity to flirt, and this is what ultimately got him in trouble.
Tar even replies to a post referencing how many had been called out in 2020, calling it
unfunny and not cool.
After this, he continues to tweet like normal, unaware that in a matter of hours, everything is about to change. A new account is created and tweets,
I am finally coming forward about my relationship with @Tarhead. I hope you will at least read what I have to say about the incident and make your own assessment on the situation.
At the time, the account is anonymous, but eventually the accuser will reveal their identity, so we'll just go ahead and refer to her by the name Chucky. Chucky starts off by saying that due to Tar's devoted fans, she's been too afraid to come out with her experience until now. In tweets posted on her personal account from the day before, after the John Bob accusations came out, Chucky mentioned she was also but expressed how terrified she was to reveal who. But when Chucky saw Tar's tweet coming to John's defense, she decided that she can't hold it in any longer. Her statement begins,
At the very start of 2020, I met Tar through a mutual friend's server. After talking for a bit, we had an explicit phone call, which I'm ashamed of. At the time, he didn't know I was. A day later, after being filled with guilt, I called him crying about how I'm. He wasn't concerned at all. All throughout January to the start of May, we were explicit in DMs and private.
I am at fault for not saying my age off the bat, and if it ended there, yes, I would be completely in the wrong. But even months after he knew my age, we still continued to do those things almost weekly, and he would even make jokes about me being like.
She uploads screenshots of multiple conversations from March, 2 months after she told Tar her age. The screenshots read,
Nice. Had a dream you were in my bed. Well, that's funny, you're cutie. One day I'll be underneath, on you. Please, I want to you.
Later on, Chucky posts even more screenshots, showing more suggestive and explicit messages from Tar, including ones where he asks her to send pictures. In one exchange, she even references her age and it goes like this.
Can you show me? Legally, no. Great.
Chucky says the thing that she is most ashamed of is that eventually he did convince her.
I never sent full on, like in text form, like as a picture. The only time I ever did anything like that is when he was like, we were in a video call on Discord.
But along with the inappropriate affection, Tar leaves Chucky confused and hurt, as he often insults her, which he describes as,
he would call me obsessed and ungrateful for wanting him to interact and do stuff with me. He would be so mean to me at points I would cry in my bed at night over him. Going from this special person behind the scenes to suddenly feeling like he hated me really took a toll on me.
And even when she makes it very clear how it makes her feel, Tar would simply respond like this.
I love you. I hate you. This isn't helping my mental state. You're mean. Please just be nice to me.
He also insults her weight, calling her a pig, and even resorting to slurs. It's worth noting here that later on, other evidence of Tar making racist comments surface, as well as allegations of animal abuse. After insulting Chucky, Tar always follows it by saying things like he loves her. This cycle continues on until August, when Chucky's boyfriend looks through her phone and sees their messages. When she messages Tar about this, he's dismissive, as we see in this screenshot.
I'm literally bawling my eyes out. I wish I was dead. My life is literally over. Maybe it's time to change yourself. Take a break. The internet is worthless. Redeem. Goodbye forever.
On August 8th, Chucky then tweets that she's no longer associating with Tar and blocks him, which would prompt Tar to message her, asking her why she actually did it. She tells him she doesn't feel comfortable anymore, and he apologizes and takes some responsibility, ending the message expressing he is a little heartbroken. However, on August 12th, Chucky messages him to admit that after talking to some of their mutual friends, she realizes that he may have f***ed her and asks for a heartfelt apology. He, however, quickly turns aggressive due to one of their friends cutting ties with him after learning what he did, sending her a long message full of insults and victim blaming.
You don't deserve anything. I hate you. I wish I never met you. I wanted to move on for so long, and you didn't want to. Obsessive freak. I just wish you would have let it go more earlier, instead of waiting till you got caught.
And even worse insults. Chucky simply points out that she's a while he's an adult, and he should have stopped things. But Tar would simply continue to deflect all of the blame on her by arguing,
I didn't know you were. I told you right after and we still continued. My mind afterwards was poisoned with sick If I knew at first, I wouldn't have gone far. When you're in that mindset, you're not thinking rationally. I tried to stop it before it got so far for both of us.
And Chucky would actually be the one to apologize, telling him that he isn't a monster, but his hot and cold behavior ruined her. Tar, as he's done in the past, would then change his tone, saying,
I'm sorry for what I said about hating you and all. I know you do care about me. I was mean to you because I didn't know any other way of getting rid of you. I have a tiny appreciation for your care.
The conversation then ends with Chucky hoping they can be friends in the future, which she also emphasizes in her September 1st post. Now, as the allegations begin to spread throughout Twitter, Tar posts a vague tweet saying that something is happening, and an hour later he posts that he's working on a response, asking his followers to wait on that. He changes his layout and bio, and once again asks for his followers to wait, revealing that he will be leaving afterwards. Now, while he actually works on his response, multiple other victims would come forward to talk about him and or emotionally abusing them. Chucky would post a couple of more times, asking the people to not harass Tar, and the morning of September 2nd, she would actually take down her original call-out post, claiming that she's overwhelmed with how big it got. That afternoon, Tar changes his layout once more, and the bio simply reads,
Here lies the boogeyman.
And he finally posts his response in a tweet captioned,
It would be very selfish with all the people I disappointed and hurt to stay. I'm ashamed and regret a lot of this. Logging off after posting this. Gonna better myself with counseling. Support the people affected. Make of it what you will. Goodbye.
He attaches a long statement telling the story from his point of view, and after that, Chucky reveals her identity and apologizes to him publicly. However, in the follow-up post, she says that after speaking to other people, she feels the need to admit her real motivations for deleting the original call-out post.
I deleted the original call-out because that night I called him. We called and he was crying and I felt so bad. I felt like I ruined his life forever. And in that moment of me being so vulnerable for him, seeing him like that, he convinced me to delete the call out and private the account.
On September 15th, she uploads a video to clarify some things and puts an end to the saga. Chucky would actually comment beneath the video that she's spoken to Tar and he's in therapy. Now, Tar stopped posting publicly after this, but his Tumblr is still up there, where he mentions having a private account. And as disturbing and traumatizing this experience was, this next case doesn't just take place online.
I'm a work in progress to be a better person. I'm a human being, and we all make mistakes.
In 2014, James Bear, an artist and animator, begins posting on Twitter and YouTube. It's slow at first, but in May 2017, he uploads the first episode in an animated series that centers around his relationship with his girlfriend, Claire. The series becomes quite popular with his dry and self-deprecating humor as a staple. At the time, it seems like that's just their relationship dynamic, but looking back now, it's hard to ignore the red flags. James immerses himself in the art community and makes plenty of friends, but with that comes enemies. The first crack begins to show in late May, when when James posts a suggestive drawing of Claire and himself. He says it is targeted at a former friend of his, Aaron, which he claims is stalking Claire, and he wants to see what he will do. And as James hopes, the drawing upsets Aaron, who posts a document titled The Truth About James Bear. It goes over every single aspect of their friendships, spanning 182 pages. Now most of it can be considered benign, but buried within Aaron's rambling is an accusation that is almost too disgusting to believe. In a private message from 2016, James admits,
"It all began in February 2013 when I began to get a little friend called depression. I didn't know at the time, and I did something terrible. I had relations with my sister, which at the time I was and she was, and we've been doing this till, I'm gonna say, till between 2015 and 2016.
Now 1 day later, he and Aaron would both suddenly apologize, and Aaron would take the document down. In the messages, James talked about how childhood trauma affected him and placed a lot of the blame on that, and most of the community pitied him after learning this. They believe what James said in the messages, saying that it was a mistake and he's changed. So while they acknowledge that it's disturbing, they generally forgive him for the thing he did. With more eyes on him than ever though, the allegations would resurface in September 2020, and he wouldn't deny it, saying,
"It did happen, but only once, when we were just and it was consensual."
Which is actually interesting, considering it directly contradicts his former timeline of 2013 to 2016. And maybe this time you'd think James would suffer some sort of serious consequence, but again, he doesn't. Instead, he just announces that he's taking a break for his mental health. His disappearance doesn't last long though, and 1 month later, he returns. After all, according to him,
"What happened back then was an isolated issue. It only happened once when I was it was already dealt with. Those who are involved are fine and made amends. I am not a threat to anyone, and the other claims are not true."
His friends and fans seem to forgive him. They believe he's remorseful, mentally ill, and trying to become a better person. Now James' videos get even more popular, now reaching over 100,000 subscribers, and from the outside looking in, it seems like things are better than ever. That is at least until March 2022, when a user posts a thread about the said allegations. He doesn't believe James deserves such a big following after what he did, and James would post a Twitter thread to address this, and this time he posted a video along with it. And since of course it's worked in the past, he again calls on people's sympathy, saying,
"The things I said years ago do not represent who I am today as a person, and I'm a work in progress to be a better person. I'm a human being, and we all make mistakes."
But this time around, he gets more hate than ever before. However, even then, he goes back to consistently posting YouTube animations, with Claire still by his side. Unlike before though, the hate simply doesn't stop, and in April 2023, he leaves Twitter completely. And 1 month later, James posts the last ever Claire and James video. This is the beginning of the end. Despite how many people James confided in about his sister, all we really had was his word. And what we learned in September 2024 is, James' word means nothing. After all these years, James' sister, Alicia, finally speaks out. She posts a document titled,
"I'm tired of staying silent."
And with it, any last shed of sympathy people held for him goes flying out the window. Alicia starts the document with the following words:
"I'm writing this dog to come forward with my abuse that my disgusting piece of brother, James Bear, has done to me. Yes, I'm unfortunately his sister, and I despise that person greatly."
And she attaches pictures to prove she is who she says she is, including James' 100,000 subscriber plaque. Now there's only one thing consistent between James and Alicia's stories. It begins in 2013, but after that, everything that Alicia describes is far worse. She immediately contradicts James' story when she says,
"I don't remember much about it, but that's when it started, and continued for a long time, especially past 2016. James lied about that part. It isn't just some one-time mistake, it's frequent."
And Alicia would list many different ways in which she would physically and emotionally hurt her. She says James pressured her, intimidated and bribed her until she agreed. According to James' unreliable storytelling, it was only a one-time thing, or it ended in 2016, but not according to Alicia. Alicia says,
"The last attempt of James pursuing me was in September 2020, when he asked me to come near his bed, but I declined, and so I went to another room."
Which is the exact month when Aaron's document came to light for the second time. Now Alicia would end her document with a plea for help, raising money to escape her home life, and people would rally around her. In January of 2024, James then implies on Twitter he plans to leave this earth, but it doesn't matter. Nobody shows him sympathy anymore. To make it even worse, a week later, Claire and her friends released their own document, showing James's abusive behavior throughout their entire relationship. She peels the curtain behind the happy cartoon couple and reveals years of emotional manipulation through their messages. As he often does, James threatens to leave this earth when he doesn't get what he wants from Claire.
"Stop saying that you deserve to die. If you want to act mature, then don't say all that stuff, that you want to die. Been mostly alone and it don't matter, right? Of course it doesn't. Stop pulling out your story again, saying you were alone and all that. And seriously, you're gonna tell someone who wants to die to pretty much stop thinking like this in order to act more mature?
After years of this kind of behavior, Claire would actually break up with James in 2023, but he simply couldn't let it go. He messages her friends, her family, and even random people from multiple different emails and accounts, switching between begging for forgiveness and posting horrible things about her, justifying it because she was flirting with other people, which is ironically something James was caught doing in the past too. The old clips of Claire and James seem different now, starting from the very first episode. The evidence mounts against James, and one thing becomes clear: he can't take no for an answer. But one thing would suddenly change the entire narrative. But before that, definitely check out War Thunder on PC, Xbox, PlayStation or mobile by using my links in the description or pinned comment. New and 6 months inactive users also get a huge bonus pack across PC and console. Days after Claire's allegations come out, Alicia would suddenly delete the donation page and post the following tweet.
Me and my family had a talk about the situation, and it would be best to not talk about it anymore. I caused nothing but stress along them, and they don't deserve it. I take full responsibility for my actions, especially with doxing them.
This raises concerns, especially because in the document, Alicia very explicitly spoke about her family ignoring her abuse when she recounts,
"One time in 2019 when I was lashing out at my mom, I told her what James did to me, and she was like, forget about it and move on. And when I told my mom that my second oldest brother was being weird to me, and she got mad at me when she noticed I was only wearing my bra and panties."
But despite that, people still hope that she managed to escape her situation. But then James posts a video. It's not just James this time though. Alicia is there too, vouching for his honesty.
If nobody is willing to believe me, then perhaps my sister will speak on behalf of that.
This is Alicia speaking, or in other words, this is his sister speaking. And what my brother James is saying is true. I would like to give my deepest apology to everyone for spreading misinformation about my brother and about my own family. Truth be told, that I only came forward because I was only upset and my reasons for being upset were petty and I had a falling out with a friend.
But nearly everyone agrees it sounds like she's reading from a script as she takes back what she said before. James later attempts to prove otherwise on Twitter, but it's useless. The excuse he used time and time again doesn't work, and people simply won't change their mind about it. Since the only evidence we have are their constantly changing stories, we may never know the truth. However, it seems like this time his reputation is truly dead.